T-Wolves cruise past Milwaukee 129-105. I got the expert with us, Jack Borman. He's going to help us break it all down, and it's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, Jack Borman. He's on Twitter, at JRBorman13. And Jack, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, man. What a difference a game makes, huh? I mean, here's what I've learned following this team all year, like I have. And maybe you could have warned me about this, but the highs are never as good as you think they are. And the lows probably is never as bad as it feels in the moment. And such a long season. It's a grind. It's a gauntlet. Sometimes all it takes, though, is like one game to get your bearings back on track and find some rhythm, some confidence, some swag, some mojo. Call it what you will. But hopefully that's what happened tonight. Wolves cruise past Milwaukee, 129-105. They moved to 36-15 on the year. No Damian Lillard. I mean, it can't be overstated enough. But, we haven't seen a game like this start to finish from the Wolves in what feels like at least a couple weeks here now, where they looked in control in every phase for nearly all four quarters. The defense, lights out on Giannis. Want to get to that here in a second. The shooting, cash money, 56% from the floor, 51% from three. And like you told me right before we hopped on, a new season high in assist to turnover ratio, which just tells you, how they were playing some team basketball tonight. Kick us off, though. What's the big takeaways and big picture? I always ask you this, but how important was it after those two gut punch losses to Orlando and Chicago to come out here with a big statement win on the road like they did?
Yeah, I think it was really important, right? This is the third game in a row that the Timberwolves have had a lead of at least 20 points. So nice of them to see the Wolves close another one out tonight. But yeah, I think it's got to be a big morale boost knowing you've got Monte Morris coming. No question about it. And we'll get to Kyle Anderson later, but no doubt that he was feeling better after that trade deadline pass, and he was still on the team. But for the Wolves, it starts with their offense, right? I think the fact that they had over 100 points after the third quarter was phenomenal. And their defense was tremendous as well. But this was a game, in my opinion, that they won with their offense at an offensive rating of 145. That is their highest in a game. Previous high was 132.
Wow. So best offensive rating of the year, period, point blank.
Yeah. So for context, the highest team offensive rating on the season is the Clippers at 122. So they cleared that by.
So are you telling me the Wolves just put up the best offensive rating of any team all year long?
No. Just their own offensive rating.
Oh, I see. Okay.
This season. So, but well beyond what, the best team in the league averages, over the course of the season. They did a great job of passing out of pick and roll. You talked about it. They had an assist to turnover ratio of 4.25. That was the highest of this season. Previous high was 3.71 against Washington a couple weeks ago. But yeah, 19 assists and just one turnover when they really extended that game open in the second and third quarters, which was tremendous. They were 19 of 36 and from three in the pre-garbage time minutes. And I thought that they did a really good job. Anthony Edwards specifically, this was probably his best playmaking game of the season. 9 assists, 0 turnovers. He was phenomenal at drawing the defense in and kicking out to shooters. He set a tone early, probably created 4 or 5 really wide open shots from beyond the arc in that first quarter, which was paramount to get him off on the right foot, especially after a second half in Chicago and overtime that he really struggled as a playmaker. So it was great to see him bounce right back with a really important performance there. I just thought that he was tremendous, right? You would have liked to see him, I think, get to that third level, get to the rim a little bit more scoring wise. Offensively, I think he probably could have had 30, 35 points had he done that. He took a lot of shots from the mid range tonight and made a good number of them, but There's some meat on the bone there, but as a playmaker, he was phenomenal below the arc, and making things happen, setting up open shots. Probably had 14, 15 potential assists. So, had those shots gone down, they would have been assists, which also counts as 9 assists. So just a phenomenal night from Ant. And yeah, I think the other big one for me is the Rudy Gobert factor was pretty massive tonight. For him to, put up 16 points, 8 of 9 shooting, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, was just a monster at the rim, and created just a ton of points with screens. I think Mike Conley's first 5 threes all came off of 2-man action with Rudy Gobert, which was, something I highlighted in the preview over at Canis, was something that the Wolves were going to need to do against his super deep drop coverage and how poor the Bucks perimeter defense has been all season. They've given up the second most unassisted 2-point baskets. So I thought it could have been an opportunity for him to get into that floater range, but that's why you saw Ant really get to work in the mid range, because that's where this Bucks defense has been really susceptible. But for Rudy to do that, create a bunch of points with his screening, but also to have 4 assists, I thought was pretty important. And he flashed some things too on the offensive end, had some nice footwork and finishes inside. Had some pretty emphatic dunks and pretty athletic finishes.
Dude, I rewound that dunk in the third quarter 7 times. No exaggeration, 7 times. The little swag, the little flex at the end.
I love it.
Just hilarious, man.
I love every bit of it.
It's a vibe, baby.
And then defensively, the Bucks only shot 62% at the rim, and the Bucks are a tremendous shooting team at the rim. So to hold them to 62% is a job well done. And they didn't really get to the rim all that often, which was pretty important. They only took 24 shots at the rim. That's pretty low for them as a whole, overall this season. And I just thought Rudy set a phenomenal tone, and we can get into a couple more things. The only other things I really want to get into from this game are the bench and then some of the defensive aspects of this one, but hard not to be pretty fired up about this win. Even though the Bucks didn't have Chris Middleton, they didn't have Damian Lillard, they didn't have Cam Payne, who's their backup point guard. That kind of showed tonight, but nonetheless, we still got to come out and win the game, and that's exactly what the Timberwolves did, and they did it pretty emphatically.
This is a little tongue-in-cheek, but I'm half serious when I say this. I mean, we've seen them build these big leads, and then the wheels fall off in the second half so many times this year. Tonight, though, they did something different they haven't done all year, and that was they warmed up away from their bench on the other side of the court, which means in the second half, they got to score in front of their own bench instead of shooting in front of the opposing team's bench. Am I half joking? Yes, sure. But hey, dude, the switch worked, and now it's
hey, it's the game within the games, baby.
Right, the little mind games now. Now, I mean, you got to assume they're going to roll with it, at least for a while now until maybe they start losing again.
They've got a few more games on the road. They've got 3 more games on the road to close out the pre-All-Star break portion of the season. So we'll see.
Yeah, all West Coast games too, which we'll talk about a little bit here. A couple late games coming up, including the Clippers on Monday night, 9:30 tip-off for that one. Definitely want to deep dive on the offense tonight. You already touched on a lot of great bullet points, but I think we should start with the defense. And again, I know you touched on that already, but every time Giannis touched the ball, top of the key, you saw 3 white jerseys build that wall right in front of the paint and just make life miserable for them. And I know that's the game plan. And it's like every team's got the same game plan against them. Easier said than done, though. It's Giannis. But his over-under point total tonight was 35.5. And I know they pulled him a little early, but he ends with 17 points, less than half his expected points. Talk to me a little bit more in depth as far as, this defense led by Rudy, per usual. You mentioned it. No Lillard. No Middleton, but still solid performance by everyone, right? Like, who else stuck out on that end to you?
Yeah, I thought Slow-Mo was tremendous as well. He used his length really well, got his hands on some passes. And this is a scenario where, the Wolves just having a stable of bodies to be able to throw at huge opposing superstar players is really, really, really important. And there's another one. Don't sleep on the fat boy. That's what he calls himself out in Denver. That the Wolves are going to have to contend with if they want to make it out of the Western Conference, or make it out of the second round of the Western Conference potentially. And so it was a great opportunity for the Wolves to just throw a bunch of different things at Giannis. But I thought they built the wall really, really well. Jaden McDaniels was tremendous as the kind of the tip of the iceberg there. And then Karl Anthony Towns had some really good reps, standing up Giannis on the drive, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And then Rudy Gobert, just the angles at which he tries to contest shots is just incredible from a standstill against a guy flying right at him. And the way that he's able to contest as many shots as he's able to without fouling is magnificent. So when you have the combination of length on the perimeter with Jaden and Slow-Mo, a guy who can stand him up in Karl Anthony Towns or Naz Reid, and then a true rim protector in Gobert, is just, everything you need to try to slow down Giannis. And for him to have 17 points on 14 shots, I think 17 points is the fourth fewest in a game this season for Giannis. It's just the fifth time Giannis has been held under 20 points in a game this season. So for the Wolves to be able to do that, pretty remarkable. And in three of those, 4 earlier this season, they were in blowout wins for the most part. The only other team to do it is Toronto in a win. And so they kind of have a similar makeup, or at least back in the early part of the season, they did, with a bunch of long, rangy, strong defenders that you can throw at Giannis. So that's kind of the blueprint. And so the Wolves had it tonight. And then the other point, which was huge, was they allowed 7 offensive rebounds and 14 second chance points in the first half. Really tightened that up in the second half, only 3 offensive rebounds and just 1 second chance point allowed, which was really important. So all those big guys did a great job of rebounding. And then you also see Mike Conley had 5 rebounds. Ant had 12 rebounds the other night, only had 3 tonight. But it was really just a team effort when you look down. I mean, everybody that played tonight had at least 3 rebounds, played rotation minutes, which is pretty important. So, you just gotta tip your cap to the Wolves for the way that they were able to win by 8 on the glass against a very good rebounding team. And they probably would have won by more, but the Wolves turned the Bucks over 13 times. So that was part of the reason why you didn't see more. So really, really phenomenal job for the Wolves to also only hold the Bucks to 16 free throws, considering that Giannis in the last 2 games against the Timberwolves had 20 and 21 free throws respectively.
Wow.
So, and I think he averaged like 37.5 points in the teams, or the 2 teams meetings last year. So really big improvement for the Wolves. Just a phenomenal defensive game. And one that should certainly be encouraging when you think about, the way that they're going to have to match up against some pretty big players out west. When you think about guys like Luka, LeBron, AD, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, guys like that you're really going to have to, rely on all 3 levels of your defense.
Flip over to the offense here. I mean, dude, where do you want to start, man? Usually we can cherry pick some stuff, but yeah, okay. Well, let me just lay it out like you kind of already touched on. But again, lights out shooting. You mentioned the offensive rating that was lights out, 145. Season high assist to turnover ratio. You mentioned, you wrote down in your notes, I just looked at this, second and third quarter, 19-1 assist to turnover ratio. Unbelievable. And maybe his best assist game tonight, which speaks volumes. Bench, though, you mentioned it, 42 points. Slow-mo. Statement game. This is why you don't trade me, Tim, pointing up to the press box up there, the front office box up there. Nas was 16. You can take it any direction you want, but for a team that struggled so much with turnovers and sloppy play, tonight, man, huge statement game just for their psyche and confidence, I would think.
Yeah, no question. I mean, 19-1 in 2 quarters. They scored 72 points in those 2 quarters, so that should really come at no surprise. For me, what was really pleasant was that Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards combined for 1 turnover. That's the story of the game right there. I mean, Nikhil had 3 of them, right? And so it's pretty rare. Or excuse me, Kyle Anderson had 3 of them. And I don't even think many of them were bad turnovers either necessarily. So it's really refreshing to see that from a team. And now they're going to get reinforcements, right? We'll talk about Monte Morris and what he brings in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, just with the bench, 42 points from the bench. Kyle Anderson had one of his better games of the season. Certainly the best game we've seen from him in a while, with 8 points on 3 of 3 shooting. He had 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. So just kind of did everything, played really within himself. You do have to wonder, is he feeling more at ease now that the trade deadline has come and gone? that this team believes in him, that this team wants him around for the rest of this season. And I know people will roll their eyes and say, oh, well, I would have wanted Royce O'Neal. Well, guess what? Royce O'Neal went for 3 second-round picks, and the Wolves weren't going to give up 3 of the 4 second-round picks that they had left to trade. Actually, I think they only had 3 second-round picks left to trade because one of them is tied up in a protection with Utah.
Got it.
So you would have had to completely wipe your cupboard bare just for a marginal upgrade on the offensive end of the floor. Kyle Anderson's a better defender than Royce O'Neal is. And tonight, he kind of showed that too on the defensive end, like we talked about. But then Naz Reid, 16 points on 11 shots. Pretty efficient night from him. Had some awesome highlights and really got himself going. I think he started 1 of 4 or 1 of 5 from the floor. And in the second half was much more efficient for Naz, which was, exactly what you want to see. He was 2 of 2 in the third quarter for 7 points. And then in the fourth quarter was 2 of 3 for 4 points. So was really important, them kind of blowing the game open. And then Nikhil, right? 7 points, 4 assists, pretty efficient game from him as well on the offensive end of the floor. What I really appreciated about the 3-pointer that he did make was it came on the possession immediately after he airballed a 3. And so love to see him just kind of have that shooter's mindset of just having a short-term memory and being ready to let it rip on the next possession, which was great. But I was just most pleased with the way that the ball moved, right? Like a lot of people would think that when you run more pick and roll like the Wolves ran tonight, that the ball would get stickier, but that's not what happened. The Wolves did a great job of kicking it to the corner and then swinging it around the perimeter, making a ton of extra passes. I don't know off the top of my head, how many corner threes did the Wolves make? The Wolves shot 9 corner threes, which is a good amount for them. They only made 3 of them, but the fact that they created 9 of them is pretty good for them with how many extra passes they made. That's kind of a good barometer for their ball movement. So you'd like to see them make more of those. I think Karl-Anthony Towns made 2 corner threes, which is obviously a good development that he's in the corner and willing to shoot them, especially with the starting 5. So
yeah, I know Jaden had at least one.
Yeah, I think he had the other one.
Yeah.
So a lot to like from this Wolves offense tonight, especially from the bench after, they've kind of struggled and now we can kind of get into it with Monte Morris, but they're going to get, another pretty consistent, scorer and playmaker off the bench.
Yeah, perfect segue. Plenty more Wolves deep dive, including Tim Conley's big trade deadline deal. That's all coming up right after this. Tonight's postcast brought to us by our friends at Prize Picks. Guys, Prize Picks, it's without a doubt the most fun I've had playing daily fantasy because you can win up to 100 times your money this basketball season. That means with as little as 4 correct picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000. And it's so easy to play. I can make my picks and submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. This week, I've pretty much rolled with Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns before every game, and I've cashed in more nights than not. Plus, PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. And with the PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. I love that. That's huge. That makes PrizePicks the only daily fantasy platform around that offers you extra injury insurance to give you that extra peace of mind. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code Locked On NBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA for a 100% bonus match up to $100. Okay, trade deadline came and went. Maybe a little less fireworks than some were expecting or hoping for, but nonetheless, Tim Conley makes a splash in the kiddie pool before it's all said and done. Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, they're headed to Detroit. For Monte Morris, who you mentioned, is already, you told me before the show, going to fit in here seamlessly. Iowa State boy, coached by Fred Hoiberg, drafted originally by Tim Conley, outstanding ball security, assist-to-turnover ratios, rock solid. Maybe most importantly, can shoot the 3, give him a little pop off the bench, and gives Mike Conley a better chance to take a few nights off and stay rested up. So how much do we like the move as a whole when you think about, who they got and what they had to give up? And how much does this, rotation change at all moving forward? What's it all look like now?
Yeah, I really liked this move from the Timberwolves. So just right off the top, a lot of fans would think, myself included, would think that, a backup point guard wasn't the chief priority, but it clearly was based on Chris Finch's comments post game, based on what the Wolves have kind of been talking about, with Mike Conley and trying to be careful with him. They have 31 games to go, or 30 games to go now. 8 of them are second half of back-to-backs, which is tied for the most in the league. So they're going to want to keep Mike Conley fresh. But like you said, with Monte Morris, he can space the floor. He shot at least 37.8% from three in each of the last 5 seasons. He is ranked near the top of the league in assist turnover ratio every single year since entering the league. If it weren't for a guy named Tyus Jones, he would hold the NBA single season record for highest assist to turnover ratio. That year that Tyus broke it, he and Monte both broke the
both
previous
broke it
record
in the same year. I got you. Yeah.
But Tyus's was higher. And he's played in 48 career playoff games, which I'm pretty sure is higher than just about every single Timberwolf player not named like Kyle Anderson, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, which is really, really important.
Was it more than like a Troy Brown?
Yeah. Okay. I think so, for sure. And maybe not as many as Shake Milton, honestly, but I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah. Nonetheless, though. Yeah. Yep.
Nonetheless, the only thing that you worry about a little bit with Monte is, is he going to shoot enough threes for the spacing to really improve all that much? Like, I don't know that defenses are going to guard him a whole lot differently than they're going to guard Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Jordan McLaughlin. But nonetheless, if he does shoot those shots more, I think that'll be really important for the Wolves. He's a really efficient shooter at all 3 levels of the defense. So he's going to be a guy that can come around Rudy Gobert screens and make defenses pay for playing in deep drop coverage, which is going to be really important. And he has a really good sense of how to draw in a defense and kick the ball out to the corners. He's played with a lot of really strong corner shooters throughout the years and has done a great job of creating 3-point baskets, which is obviously something that you want to see for a Wolves team that really needs to increase their 3-point volume. But honestly, where I'm most excited about Monte Morris, outside of being able to start for Mike Conley in games where they're going to be resting Mike, or let's say you want to try to keep Mike to 20 minutes or something like that, kind of a rest game within a game, is that Morris is a really consistent scorer. He's a guy that really plays within himself, but is a guy that is going to consistently get you 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 points a game off the bench. And that's something that the Wolves need. It's not something that you could, kind of pretty consistently rely upon with guys like Nickeil and Jordan McLaughlin. He's immediately going to be, in my mind, the number 2 scorer off the bench behind Naz Reid, depending on what the Timberwolves do in the buyout market. That's something that we'll get into a little bit in a moment. But he's a veteran presence. He's been a really beloved teammate pretty much everywhere he's been. He's played with a lot of really high-level players. He knows Tim Connolly extremely well. Tim Connolly drafted him when Connolly was the executive in Denver, and he played his first, 5 or 6 seasons in Denver, all of them while Connolly was there. And obviously has a great familiarity with this Timberwolves squad, with how much he's played them over the last couple of seasons. And what I really appreciate about this is that, depending on how the Timberwolves may change the complexion of this team in the offseason, there's a chance that he may want to re-sign here and take a little bit of a discount to play and run it back with the Timberwolves if he feels really strongly about what they're able to do over the rest of the season. The big question mark with Morris, beyond some of his 3-point shooting volume is some of his defense. He's about the same size as Mike Conley, so he's 6'2". Doesn't necessarily have a wingspan, that'll really, stick out to you. But, is a guy that I'd say is a really smart team defender, is a good off the ball defender, isn't a guy that you have to worry about getting lost or falling asleep when he's chasing around a shooter. A lot of the same things that you see with Mike, is good at drawing, moving screens, which is important as well. So, really, really like the pickup, and the fact that they only give up 1 second-round pick, considering, how many deals you saw today where teams were giving up 2-3 second-round picks for really solid veterans is important. And part of that might just be because Monte Morris has only played in 6 games this season. He missed the first 43 games of the season for Detroit with a right quadricep strain, You'd have to imagine that he didn't rush that at all, considering how bad the Pistons have been and that they didn't really need him, and that he was very clearly going to be a guy that they were going to trade or buy out at this point in the season. And so his numbers don't really look pretty since he's returned, but I think you just got to give him some runway. Coming off that injury, he's been extremely consistent throughout his career. I don't think that a right quadricep strain, missing 3 months or whatever, again, partially because of how bad the Pistons were. I think he probably could have come back sooner than that if it was a team that was winning. But you just kind of got to see how he's going to return from that. He's been struggling a little bit, I guess, offensively since he came back. But again, he's just got to get into shape. And once he does that, they'll be fine. And the good thing is, the Timberwolves are in a space right now where they've pretty much been playing an 8-man rotation with these guys, played pretty much eight people tonight. So, I don't think they're going to really struggle to onboard Monte Morris properly, right? He's going to have the weekend to kind of get to know these guys. The Wolves are going to be in Minneapolis tomorrow and Saturday before flying to LA on Sunday. So he'll have some time to kind of get on the floor with his new teammates and, hopefully be out there ready to go on Monday night in Los Angeles.
Boy, plenty of times this year you wish you could just clone Mike Conley, get two of them on the floor, at least, in the rotation. And even though, okay, that's not realistic, that's not an option. Still, the next best case scenario, it sounds like getting a mini Mike, so to speak, that offers, again, like you said, a lot of the same qualities and characteristics, which bode well for the Wolves.
I wouldn't classify Tyus Jones as a backup point guard, considering what we've seen from him now.
Yeah.
Monte Morris is the best backup point guard in the NBA.
Wow.
And so the fact that the Wolves have...
So this is huge, man. Out of a scale of 1 to 10 for the novice average basketball fan or Wolves fan, 1 to 10, maybe not a monster name, not a guy you're going to see on posters, right? But pretty big for this team right now, right? 1 to 10, how big was this?
I would say like a 7 or an 8.
Yeah, feels like it.
Reserving the 9 and 10 for... some of the bigger things or multiplayer deals that you'd see. Like last year is probably an 8 or a 9 for the Timberwolves. This year is probably more of a 7 or an 8. Just to have another steady hand, right? It's got to help Chris Finch sleep easier at night. And just makes this team a little bit more dynamic offensively. And even if that bumps you from 19th to 14th, right? That's going to be really important. And if the Timberwolves can convert, or I don't know, let's say they're averaging like 15 turnovers a game, 14 turnovers a game. If they can cut that down to 11, and shoot the ball 4 more times, considering, or get to the line 4 more times, considering how efficient their offense has been when they've actually gotten a shot up, they could very easily jump from 19th up to 13th, 12th, 11th, just by not turning the ball over as much. So really important acquisition for the Timberwolves, and they're not done either. They're absolutely going to be a player in the buyout market. We can get into that as well.
Yeah, I want to segue to that. A couple more topics I still want to hit on, so we got to go rapid fire here. But where do the Wolves stand now as far as the buyout, the money they have to play with, the players still in the mix? Just any moves still on the horizon that could potentially get done in your estimation? Or is this maybe what to expect now as far as our roster goes from here on out?
Yeah, so a lot of buyout guys are, will sign prorated veterans minimum exceptions for the rest of the season. So if the Timberwolves were to sign a guy tomorrow, I don't think they will, but if they were to sign a guy, let's say Saturday, it would probably cost them around $750,000 to have that player in for the rest of the season. As it stands right now, the Timberwolves currently have, what is it here? About $1.56 million in space beneath the luxury tax. So they certainly have plenty of space to be able to go out and sign a guy. And to be able to offer more than the veterans minimum, honestly. So the Timberwolves have $3.4 million left over of their mid-level exception, which is really important because, if you think about some of the other teams that are going to be playing in the buyout market, the Lakers, the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Lakers, Knicks are going to be right there as 2 teams that will be in the buyout market. The Wolves can offer more money than both of those teams. Other teams like Dallas, the Pelicans, the 76ers can all offer more than the Timberwolves can. But I don't think that those are teams that are going to, really be trying to spend multi-million dollars on a buyout guy, right? It's pretty rare that you see that. But something to keep in mind for Wolves fans that are playing around. Who are guys that the Timberwolves can go after?
Love that. All right, coming up, we're going to preview the Wolves and Clippers. That's on deck, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by BetterHelp. What are some things you want to keep the same about yourself or about your life in 2024? Where are you already crushing it? Try ditching the New Year's resolutions and start expanding on what you already do right. Maybe that's organizing the closet or the garage. I know that's something that I'm terrible about. Therapy can help you find your best strengths and maximize your own specific skill set. So you can finally ditch all the extreme resolutions. Instead, therapy can help you make changes that really stick over the long term once and for all. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your time frame. And it's so easy. All you got to do, fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time at no additional charge. It's time to start celebrating the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay, last one here. Clippers on deck. Big battle on the West Coast for the Western Conference. And I know of the big four here, all clumped atop this conference right now, you've been adamant for weeks now. It's actually the Clippers who scare you the most and look like maybe the most complete team right now of the bunch. Give us a quick little tease as far as what to maybe expect out of that matchup and where the Wolves need to win and kind of attack to give themselves the best chance on Monday night.
Yeah, really quick, just to go back to the buyout thing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
So Golden State, the Clippers, the Suns, the Bucks, the Celtics, the Nuggets, and Miami all cannot sign a buyout player who made at least $12.5 million in their previous contract. So guys that the Timberwolves could certainly be near the front of the list for are guys like Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Evan Fournier, Danilo Gallinari, Marcus Morris, Daniel House are guys that are six guys that I would keep an eye on for the Wolves in the buyout market. But shifting back now to the Clippers, I think something that's going to be really important is just finding a way to slow down Kawhi Leonard. He's been on one of the most efficient scoring tears in the league. The Clippers have been the most efficient offense in the league all season, and especially since January 1st. And so if the Wolves can replicate a performance they did in Target Center a couple of weeks ago, and really limit Kawhi from doing most of the damage and having to force everyone else to beat them, having to force James Harden to be a scorer. He really, at this stage, really just wants to be an A+ distributor, which he has been. But I think the more that you can force him to take shots, the more that you can force Paul George into working to get his shots and just getting the ball out of Kawhi Leonard's hands the best you can. I think the better off the Timberwolves are going to be. But again, really deep team in LA that cycles through a bunch of different big guys with Zubac and Plumlee and Tice. And obviously we all know that they have Russell Westbrook waiting off the bench, which is quite a good just pace setter, tone setter for them that can get everyone else involved. So for the Wolves, it's just cutting off the head of the snake and hoping that you can play good enough defense on everybody else, kind of like you did tonight, right? Where you force everyone else to try to beat you, didn't have enough. And hopefully the Wolves can start that little 3-game West Coast swing off on the right foot.
Which side of this prop bet are you taking? The amount of times they show Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl Sunday, or, hear me out, the amount of times they showed Robin Lopez in the first row reading a book in Milwaukee tonight. How many times did they show that guy, dude? And granted, it was hilarious.
6 times.
It was hilarious, man. I loved it. I was going nuts.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Are we boring you here? Like two of the best teams in the NBA going at it? I'm sorry. Are we Anthony Edwards not good enough for you or what?
It was funny. Robin Lopez got traded today, and he's a hilarious guy, gets in fights with opposing mascots, kind of as a running bit.
Yeah.
And he
tweeted, smart dude too, Stanford. Smart guy.
He said that he'd treasure the hour and 45 minutes that he spent with Patrick Beverley as a teammate with the Bucks. And Pat Bev responded to him, which was pretty funny. And then he also tweeted that he hopes that the Kings fans will remember all of the contributions that he gave the Kings in the 30 minutes he was a King before the Kings waived him before the end of the day. So
that's great. Yeah, funny stuff. All right. Wolves bounce back strong in Milwaukee, 129-105. Trade deadline officially in the books. Slow-mo stays. TBJ and Shake head to Detroit in exchange for Monte Morris. On the road, big West Coast trip on deck. That starts in LA versus the Clippers next Monday. Tip-off for that one. We got a late one here, kids. 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hope you guys stay up late with us for that one. As always, huge shout-out to everyone that joined us. Always love the feedback, the comments after every game. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, got to go check out all of Jack's work on Twitter. It's at JRBorman13. And make sure you check out him and the full crew on the Minnesota Basketball Party each and every Wednesday. Sam Ekstrom, Ron Johnson, Reggie Wilson from Care 11. Plus, we got Ben Beacon ripping it up over on the Locked On Wolves podcast. That's each and every day as well. That'll do it for us tonight. He's Jack Borman. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter, at Luke_Spinman. Until next time. Signing out.